In this video, I'll be giving you an easy guide to completing the main Easter egg solo on the brand new Black Ops 7 Zombies map, Astra Malorum. Completing the egg will reward you with the bottled up operator skin for Nikolai, a calling card, charm, and some XP. Before we get into the guide, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and turn on post notifications for everything Astra Malorum in Season 1, including an in-depth solo boss breakdown. With that out of the way, let's get into it. First things first, we're going to be turning on power and activating Pack-a-Punch. Most of this is guided, however, you will need to find and pick up two different harmonic components. One is near the Stellar Dissector Trap, and the other is in the Machina Astral Rooms. Again, it's super easy, it's guided on screen, but once you have both, you can then repair the telescope and complete a lockdown sequence to unlock Pack-a-Punch. Once Pack-a-Punch is open, you can start collecting contraption pieces for the LGM-1. The first contraption piece are the Absolute Zero fragments, which can be collected by shooting 3 of the ether crystals around the map while having Cryo Freeze equipped to your weapon. The crystals can spawn anywhere around the map, and I would advise not shooting any of them until you have Cryo Freeze equipped because they spawn sparingly after you've destroyed them once. Once you've shot all 3 crystals and collected all 3 shards, we can move on to the next contraption piece. Our second piece is going to be the wires, which can be found by shooting a blinking lamppost somewhere around the map. These lampposts can be found in any of the outdoor areas around the map, and it appears the location is random in each game. I've restarted about 5 times to check and see where these would spawn, and each lamppost was in a different area of the map, so just be on the lookout after you activate Pack-a-Punch. The flashing lamppost itself, again, won't turn on until Pack-a-Punch has been opened, much like every other step for this Easter egg, but once you do find it, it sticks out like a sore thumb. You really can't miss it. It's the only one on the map that's going to be flashing. You just want to shoot it with your bullet weapon, and it'll drop the wires. Our third contraption part is the car battery, which can be found in the hood of O.S.C.A.R. In order to get this part, you'll need to have, again, opened up Pack-a-Punch. I think you might even need a Pack-a-Punch weapon for this, but you're going to want to head back to spawn where O.S.C.A.R's hanging out and then shoot the hood of O.S.C.A.R. It'll crack open and the car battery will drop for you to pick up. The last contraption part is the flying saucer. This one's super simple as well. All you have to do is shoot one of O.S.C.A.R's saucers that he deploys when he activates his shield. Once it's broken, it'll drop on the ground. You can run over and pick it up. Once you have all 4 contraption parts, you can move into the trap trials with O.S.C.A.R. There's going to be 3 individual traps around the map that you can activate with the parts that you've collected, and you'll have to complete a trial at each of these 3 different areas with 3 separate O.S.C.A.Rs. This can be done in any order, but the first one I did in my game was the Electro-Volt Projector trap that can be found in the Luminarium. You need to lure an O.S.C.A.R. into the Luminarium and then activate the trap. This causes a mini lockdown sequence where O.S.C.A.R's battery will need to be overcharged with the trap. Simply keep O.S.C.A.R. inside of the room to progress the overcharge bar, and when the battery overcharge is about to finish, make sure O.S.C.A.R. does not have a force field around him. The objective here is to have the battery progress bar finish while O.S.C.A.R. is vulnerable. If the timer runs out and his force field is still up, you'll have to try again the next time an O.S.C.A.R. spawns in. But if you do this successfully, the car battery is overcharged while he has no shield. It'll blow up, it'll insta-kill O.S.C.A.R., he'll be teleported away, and you can move on to the next trial. The next trap can be found in the museum right in front of the speed cola machine. For the rocket trap, you'll need to have 3 shards in your inventory, and if you fail to complete this trial, you'll have to collect 3 more crystals with Cryo Freeze. Again, once you're sure you've collected 3 shards from the ether crystals using Cryo Freeze, lead O.S.C.A.R. to the back of the rocket itself. Make sure he doesn't have a force field around him again, just like you did with the first trap, then interact with the button on the left side of the rocket. If O.S.C.A.R. is close enough to the engine, it'll insta-kill him and destroy him, just like it did with the other trap, where he'll basically be teleported away. You won't see him again. That's how you know you've completed this one successfully. But if you do fail this step, you'll have to collect 3 more crystals, like I mentioned earlier, and the rocket trap also only lasts like 5 seconds, so really make sure you've got O.S.C.A.R. right up against it. The last trap trial is going to be the Sun trial, which can be done in the Observatory Dome where Pack-a-Punch is located. In order to start this trial, you have to find 5 steaming valves around the area and shoot them in quick succession. They can be located above, below, on the same level of the Pack-a-Punch area, and there's one additional one over near the portal to the fast travel. So what you're going to want to do is shoot one at a time. Only one valve will be producing smoke. You can hear it hissing. It's really not that hard. I would highly suggest doing this at the end of a round, maybe even on a lower round, or when O.S.C.A.R. himself is away from this area, because it's going to get really hectic in here, especially on the higher rounds. But once you do find one of these valves, you want to shoot it. Another valve will spawn somewhere around the room. Again, crank up the audio. You're going to hear it hissing. They're all, like I said, located within this one specific area as well, over by the teleporter, but you will hear the hissing pretty loudly if it's the end of the round. Once you've shot all 5 in rapid succession, you'll get like a quote from the entity, and the next thing you're going to want to do is, again, just like the other 2 traps, lead an O.S.C.A.R. into this area. Make sure he's very close to you before you start this one, because again, you'll only have a limited time to kill him with this trap. Once you have an O.S.C.A.R. in there and you've heard the entity speak, you can now interact with the telescope, and you'll have to line it up with the sun. Now, there's a planet, it looks like the moon, off to the farther bottom right corner of the telescope. The sun, for me, every single game has been like straight up and to the left. If you want to match up the specific coordinate in the bottom left, you can see where it's at in your game, but literally just take the telescope, move it up and to the left, and you should be able to see it pretty easily. It's the bright sun there. Once it's lined up, you'll be kicked out of the telescope and a giant laser beam will come through the telescope. Again, you're going to want to just lead O.S.C.A.R through this. If you do it correctly, it should insta-kill him once he hits the middle of the trap. Now, as soon as he's killed, again, you can do these in any order, but the last trap that you use, the third and final one, will kill O.S.C.A.R. It'll always drop the LGM Wonder Weapon. You can then pick it up and use it, like I said. Once you've got the Wonder Weapon, we can move on to the next step, which is going to be following O.S.C.A.R around the map without being targeted. You'll have to wait until he's not aggro and just keep following him for a good amount of time. I'd suggest turning on subtitles here because O.S.C.A.R will replay audio logs of his kills, and eventually he'll get to a log where he's involved with a man named Thurston. Thurston will relay you 3 planets in order. You have to simply take the planets that Thurston said in that order and match them up with what order the planets are lined up in. On screen now is the solar system with each planet, its chronological number. Once you've converted your planets to a 3-digit code, you can go to the observatory and input it into this gas valve. If done correctly, a platform will drop from the left side of Pack-a-Punch where you can hop up and grab a key from the dead astrologer. Next, you'll have to head back to the telescope and interact with it to line it up with Mars. The telescope is pretty close to Mars, so you simply just line it up there and take note of the coordinates that are on the bottom left of the telescope. I think this is the same every game, but just in case, I would just check this, especially if this is your first time doing this. Once you have your coordinates, head to the second floor of the Machina Astra room and interact with this machine to input your 4-digit code. Moving on, you'll now have to take that key that you got from the dead guy of the Machina Astra room, and you'll be able to unlock the dead specimen. Once unlocked, head to the museum, and to the right of the exfil booth, there will be a case that you can break open and grab the saw. Once you have the saw, return to the lung and cut out the specimen's brain. You must now take the brain to the Luminarium brain container and place it in the jar. Interact with it again to start a timed lockdown, and as soon as you've completed it, you can pick up the brain and slowly walk it back to the device in the bottom of the Machina Astra room. Here you'll be able to place the brain in the chamber in this room, and book names will begin flashing on the left side of the screen. You have to take note of each of the books that are flashing and note which ones you have in your game. Once you have all the book names written down, you can then move into the archive of Orbis. Here there will be 3 bookcases spread out throughout the room with 3 different statue heads next to them staring in the direction of each set of bookcases. You have to interact with each set of bookcases that are near the heads and look for your books, then turn the statue heads based on how many of your books are in each bookcase. It sounds complicated, but here's what I did in my game to get it done very easily. My list of books from the screen where the brain is at were The Black Veil, The Unknowable Void, Echoes of Andromeda, Witchlight Codex, and Silence and Singularity. I then went to the room with the bookcases and went to each quadrant of bookcases looking for books I had. In the first set of bookcases, I had Void and Echoes, which means I would turn the statue near it twice. The second quadrant, I had Codex and Singularity, so I turned that statue twice as well. And then the last quadrant, I only had Veil, so I turned that statue once. Note, some bookcases will have random books that aren't on the list. Just ignore those, they're red herrings. Once you've turned the statues in a short amount of time, a trapdoor will open above the ladder in the corner of the room that you can climb and then pick up the planet Neptune. Once you have Neptune, head back to the Machina Astra room and place Neptune on the diagram where it has an opening for a free planet. You now have to find 3 pieces of paper that are scattered around the map that have a direction and a planet on them. The locations for these papers are in the same spot every game, but the planets and directions change each match. The first paper is on the second floor of the Machina Astra room, the second is in the trap room next to the Juggernog area, and the last is on the table in the middle of the archival Orbis. Once you've noted your 3 planets and their corresponding directions, you must return to the Machina Astra room and shoot your 3 planets to match it up with their directions. Super easy, just use a bullet weapon to move each individual planet and stand at the bottom of the room to see which direction they're being pointed towards. After all 3 of your planets are aligned, interact with the brain machine to start a 2-minute lockdown defense. You need to defend the portal in the middle of the room from O.S.C.A.R as he'll shoot individual UFOs to destroy the portal health. Be careful because zombies will be swarming, but again, the only objective here is to defend that portal from UFO attacks. If you're successful, you'll be sucked up and teleported to Shangri-La on Mars. Shout out to all of you Shang is on Mars truthers. Now is your time to stand up because you were absolutely right the entire time, and you got gaslit by the community into thinking you wasn't on Mars. But hey, anyways, now that you're here on Shangri-La on Mars, pick up the brain in the middle of the room and place it in the altar at the top of the pyramid. This will then charge up the return portal to the main section of the map. Return back to the main part of the map and equip fireworks on your weapon. Then go back to Mars and wait until you hear an activation noise that sounds like a bird. Once you hear this noise, shoot the pylons with fireworks outside of the far barriers in Mars to move a blue orb to bring it to the top of the temple. The order that you shoot these pylons are the back right, the back left, the front right, and then the front left. Then finally, once all 4 are lit, shoot the orb above the temple. This will cause a bird to spawn in the arena, and you'll want to keep shooting the orb to freeze it in place until anti-gravity turns on. Once anti-gravity turns on, wait for the bird to fly lower, then jump up and grab it. This will turn it into an artifact eye that you can then place in this statue in the back right corner of the arena. Interact with the eye and then go back to the telescope near Pack-a-Punch. Interacting with this organ will then display a 4-symbol code. Take note of the order that the symbol is flashed in and then head back to Mars. There are now 5 pillars with 4 of those 5 symbols that you just saw around the arena. Starting with the symbol that wasn't shown to you by the telescope, shoot the top of that pillar with the wonder weapon, then run around the arena and shoot the remaining 4 pillars with the symbols shown to you by the telescope in order. Again, start with the symbol that you didn't see on the telescope, then run to the other 4 symbols in order and shoot them with the wonder weapon. Once you've shot all the pillars correctly, the symbols will then light up blue. This next step is the final step before the boss fight, so I'd recommend getting stacked up on your perks, weapons, lethals, tacticals, and a few gobblegums that I would recommend personally are Shields Up, Power Keg, and Raindrops if you've got them. Now that the symbols are blue, you're going to want to interact with each pillar and see which one plays an etheric noise. If you do not hit the right pillar, the symbol will turn red and you'll have 2 more attempts to find the correct one. If you do hit the right symbol though, you hear that good noise and the symbol will turn blue and you can try hitting another pillar to play that same etheric noise. From what I've gathered, this step is completely trial and error, just like the Shangri-La Gong Step, but if you fail to hit the right symbols in the right order 3 times, you'll have to flip the round and try again. Once you do manage to hit all 5 of the symbols though, quickly as fast as you can because this step is timed, run up to the brain and interact with it to start the boss fight. Moving on to the boss fight, Caltheris is a 4-phase menace. He's an absolute tank, guys. Caltheris is the island that Astra Malorum is located on. You're going to be going up against the big floating head in phase 1. It'll be shooting lasers down at you and even kind of have a missile attack similar to Vatherion. But in phase 1, you're not going to be directly damaging this boss himself. You're going to want to run around with the wonder weapon or regular bullet weapon. I would honestly probably just run around with the wonder weapon to save some ammo and points here. Just rack up zombie souls. You'll notice they'll be charging up one of these 2 generators on either side of the temple. Once one generator is ready to go, you're going to want to run up and interact with the brain. This is going to be a knuckle cracking animation, so you're going to be there for a minute. You might have to use an ether shroud, but again, once that pillar is ready to go and lit up completely, there'll be an audio cue. You run up there, you interact with the brain, and then it'll shoot a laser up to Caltheris, and it'll take down 1/3 of his health. Again, for the second phase here, it's the exact same thing, except you're going to be filling up the other one on the other side. You can kill zombies from anywhere in the arena when you're doing this. It's really just as simple as killing zombies, waiting for that next pylon to charge up, and then go ahead and interact with the button to take down another 1/3 of his health. The final phase is going to be doing this again, except you're going to be charging up both at once. I think it's like roughly the same amount of zombies. I don't think it's like anything crazy in terms of the kill requirement to charge both of these guys up. But again, just like the first 2 phases, run around, try not to get hit by the island's attacks, and then go ahead and kill all the zombies and charge it up. Go ahead and shoot the laser, and then be on to phase 2, where the island explodes and Caltheris turns into a mini rock monster that now has the ability to ground pound you and throw rocks. This phase honestly really isn't too hard, guys. You just want to keep your distance. There is anti-gravity, so sometimes if you do jump, you're going to kind of get stuck in air and he can catch up to you and do a ground pound that'll take a lot of your health and armor away. So for this phase specifically, I would try my best to just slide around. Don't hit jump. Don't try and jump too far away unless you're jumping from the top of the temple down to the bottom corners of the map. But for the most part, guys, like I said, just use your sliding attacks here. You can get away from him pretty quickly. If you want a more detailed breakdown on how I was able to beat him very, very easily and efficiently in solo, I will be doing an individual solo guide for the boss fight. But for the sake of this video and keeping the Easter egg guide relatively short on time, we won't be covering too much of the elite strength to take this guy down here. But in phase 2 with the mini rocks, you're going to want to shoot his blue spots. Once you do enough damage to one of his blue spots, it'll kind of break open. You're going to want to shoot another blue spot. That'll break open, repeat until he gets down to the point where you can see the glowing crystals coming through. He'll be less of a bullet sponge with armor and kind of like the Citadel boss fight where now you're doing critical damage. He'll be very easy to take down in this phase compared to you doing damage to his armor. And then, of course, once you are able to get through this, Caltheris will then ascend to the Caltheris the Ascendant. He is now a bigger rock monster that basically just has more armor. It's the same thing as phase 2. You're just going to be shooting his blue hard spots with the armor, trying to break them, trying to get down to his critical damage. And then once you get down to that critical damage again, he's much easier to deal with, but he will be doing a lot more here. I'm pretty sure mimics start to spawn in this phase as well. So you're running around, you're going to have to deal with more zombies, you're going to have to deal with mimics. He does get a little bit faster in this phase, but again, it's really just breaking his armor to get down to his critical spots in this phase 3. Now on to the final phase, phase 4. This is by far the hardest phase of all 3 of them, obviously. The final stage of the boss fight. He turns into Caltheris the Needle. This is the biggest rock monster that can then throw gaseous rocks at you that stay there for a minute. So what I mean by that is he'll throw a rock. When it explodes near you, it'll also produce gas, kind of like the DE wisps from the DE boss fight, where if you run through him, you'll take damage. You got to be very, very careful in this phase because it will stun you too. So if you get hit by the rock, then you're getting taken damage by the electricity that's spawning and hitting you as well. Plus, if you run away and have to come back and you get that area cut off, you're going to just be in big trouble if you're near any of these rocks. So you really have to try to keep your distance here and kind of bait him into throwing the rocks into the corners of the map that you're not going to be near, and then loop around and get him again. Like I said, though, he also has faster movement speed, so he can, like, push you and then actually run up to you, and he tries to push you into the corners of the map. So if you get stuck in those back corners by those pillars, you're in big trouble over there, too. This is where I would use an Ether Shroud. This is where I would just do everything to absolutely get away from him. I would switch to your dedicated melee as well, because you do have the faster movement speeds with whatever melee you're using. Again, this is where if you do get stuck in that corner, pull out the melee and just try and run away. Don't try shooting them. Don't try shooting the zombies unless you're absolutely stuck in a corner. Worst case scenario is use your weapon. Just try to get as far away from him as you can if you get stuck in these corners. Again, he's just like phase 1, 2, 3, where you just chip away at his health, chip away at his health. Once you break through his armor and you get to the crit spots again, it becomes relatively easy. Obviously, it is harder to survive with him throwing those gas rocks at you, as well as his faster movement speed, but for the most part, it is really just break his armor and go ahead and get into this final phase where then you can use your weapon, and he honestly goes down pretty quickly in comparison to the armor phase. I'd say it honestly takes longer to break through his armor than it does to get from the armor phase where he's like half health down to no health at all. So, but once you do finish off Caltheris, the needle, you've completed the main Easter egg. The cutscene will play, and you can go ahead and collect your rewards. Also, I don't think you have to spawn back in to get your curse tablet. I think that's just immediately active the second that you complete the main Easter egg. So if you guys did find this guide helpful, be sure to drop a like and subscribe for more Black Ops 7 Zombies and Astra Malorum content coming at you with, like I said, that dedicated boss fight video here very shortly. Hope you have a good one. Stay safe, stay hydrated. Peace.